Hello and most welcome to H929. And today I will discuss knowledge from a perspective of remembrance, history, tradition, the material, what is in the past. I am talking about retention and what that give to us human beings as a measure of understanding what is to come, and also a measure of what we are, and even, or rather I would say, how we are, how we come to be. This is the why question of Heidegger. How things come into existence. The ignored question, but at the same time the most pertinent and important question. It is the past that informs our knowing principle. It is the past that gives us sustenance. This is the place of retention, so that we can come into the knowing that will inform the projection. This is what gives energy and also leverage for the thrust forward. In the West, we have a tradition of not acknowledging the past. I would say already in the dialogues it's very obvious that knowledge is not of the past. It is something in the now. It is not something you acquire by work. It is always already there in the now. The perfected forms are showing the now is the place for knowledge and nowhere else. Everything is contained in the now. We should not strive to dwell into the past, as Socrates says. I would say that this ego looking at its past moments, this rumination I've been discussing before, it is taking away the glory of what has happened, what is the materiality of our own lives, our memories, our past actions, all the different moments that happened before, that gives us balance and informs the projection. It's very obvious in Henri Bergson and also in Edmund Husserl that if you do not enter the past, you cannot inform your future actions. If you do not let the past make it house into the future, the information, the knowledgeable tendency, the impetus, the intentional impetus to forward thrust, which is bodily forward upward thrust, strengthening. The more knowledge you can acquire, the more knowledge that sustains your body and balance you up, sending you in a direction that constantly creates new futures based on the knowledgeability of the past, but not the past as moments owned by the ego, but rather an interaction that is endogenous in the sense that there is a participating awareness really going into what has happened and interacting fractally with what was and thereby accessing them. Whereas in the technological model of knowing, it is a blocking out, making moments, memories opaque, not translucent. You can't enter them anymore. You look upon them in what is called usually a global take. Global is that, to get into the zest here, is you see your past events from a conformist perspective, like history in Heidegger sense, the written history, the one that we agreed upon and that blocks out all details, and where there is almost a monosemic view on how things are connected to each other. The technological knowledge is to apply that even to ourselves, to what we have had experienced before. And thereby a huge distance is already created, and we have this polarity between the ego owning the moments, making them to things that are looked upon, categorized and put into a causal order afterwards. And we ruminate about this. We do this over and over again in an endless stream. And this is the establishing of memory as a technological model. And it doesn't inform anything this way. It cannot inform because we do not enter into the past. We look upon it from a distance. It's more like forehanden. And therefore we cannot compare different moments. We cannot compare moments when we were more aware and moments when we were less aware. We cannot compare moments when we were more harmonious, delighted, satisfied, with moments where we were not satisfied, less harmonious. And therefore the difference is not built as to look for the better parts, the better moments. So we constantly, as Socrates advised, seek only a knowledge in the now, not from what has passed. And that, of course, is an already established limitations on things, how they can progress and what they are. This obscures possibilities from the very outset, from the beginning, and it establishes a model where there is only one single cause and effect. There cannot be various, and they always conform to the same way. They never change. And this is, of course, the Western tradition of taking away the past, seeing the past as pure evil, seeing the past as not bringing any knowledge to your life or to your existence or even to humanity. This is blocking out of the time we spent. It's blocking out of the progress of time that is in the past. It's also blocking out our knowing procedure, and by the same time also narrowing the awareness so we cannot enter the past other by a very, very thin line. This thin line between what we ridicule, what we cast away in front of us, the future, and the thing behind us, the past that we shy away from. That is something gone, absent, not present, not having the glorious of full presencing. This beetle box that we always strive for in Western tradition. Just give me a moment here. This blocking out has to do with consistency and coherence as well. We use this rudimentary mapping device, this matrix, to fit our all experience into, to make them equal. It's a generalizing tendency to make all moments that has passed into equal units, and this generalizing is what's taking away the fractal knowledge of the past moments, of the past as such. Instead of openness, that fractality, we create this illusion of pure dimensions, x, y, z, and thereby we cannot enter the past. Past do not adhere to this constriction. It is more of an openness. It is this jagged line that is fractality, and in order for it to work on the exogenous, if you call that the memory, both sides needs to be fractal and open, and that there are not being blinds or limits previously or before the very fact of memory entrance, of retention being established. And this can also be the case that we have an established order between pretension and retention, and viewing, which often is the case, the future to be more important than the past. The past is this automatic process where the ego acquires the past moments and produces an artificial cause and effect, generalized cause and effect, this global take on your memories, like your memories were not your memories, but a general memory coming from nowhere and see by none specifically. And this is of course the memory as an origo, an undefined, not localized point of knowledge, non-localized point of awareness, where blockage and cutting out of the big mass of experience is beforehand already diminished to shrapnel of what it was. And here we of course have a common device, the mold of self-similarity. You look into the memories and you try to see what is the difference in between them, creating polarities, weighing them. This is the rumination, trying to decide what is a true memory, and then you transform them into almost plastic parts, industrial products of your past, instead of letting them be what they are. One can also call the cause and effect as almost a violent or crude way of demanding or forcing the moments to adhere to that, and you don't care how elegantly they were experienced once they happened, or all the years of experience, decades of experience, millennia of experience. They are all cut down to be, as Heidegger called, Historia, Historien, instead of the true history, the Geschichte. We don't have those defining terms in Swedish, but these are also neologisms of Heidegger. And as always, when he creates this, they are important and not to be confounded with the regular use of them. They should be understood in context. there is also a most repetitive response to the memories to the past, and all past starts to look the same. Just as we experience when we grow older, memories are no longer as vivid as they used to be. They're not as colorful, they are not as emotionally laden, because we become afraid of them even. This is this shying away of knowledge. This is the fear of the apeiron, fear of limits, fear of how the past could inform our decisions, and we feel sort of, from the ego's perspective, strangled by knowledge. It's a little bit to be compared to tradition. Many people try to shy away from tradition. It strangles us, it makes our living harder. We don't have those liberties. This is in some ways a bit parallel. It's not exactly the same, but it's going into that area. Because in the Socratian view, we want to break free. We not want to be strangled by the apeiron of knowledge. We want to create our own lives in the now. And this is, of course, the ego talking. The ego wants to create his own self-similar, repetitive, always the same, colorless, shapeless, dimensionless, very important. All doings of the ego is always dimensionless, deadened. And they are also hard. Those are hard memories, not in the sense that they are terrible, but they are hard, like almost memories in a memory bank of a computer. And taking this into the context, it's no wonder that we perceive human memory to be computer-like, not an active process. Like we have a system in our head called the executive function that automatically should function and just take the memories out of the brain somewhere, like a librarian taking out books out of the library. That should just function, and it doesn't take any will. I think that's the absolute utmost passivity you can think of, that this soulful thing would be an automatic process, is a reduction beyond belief of something that is much more open, much more vivid, and we cut off the energy from the past in this way, in the most forceful way. We say pre-handed that knowledge should not enter, because we want to conquest memory. We want to subjugate it to a terror, to a torture, and we want to dispel it. This is the metaphysics of presence, dispelling the past. The past is bad. The past is gone. It's dark. It's the Middle Ages, it's traditions, it's history. It is ways of doing things that are no longer in the now, in the modernity, forcing us to acquire and adjusting to things that we're not really happy with, pre-handed. But we don't care, because we decided beforehand that the only way of going about our lives is to live in the now. That's the only truth, and that is going to give us this complete lack of satisfaction, happiness and vividness that we used to have in childhood. It's going to be there in the now. And of course, this is the impetus of all doings. The past is dead. Nothing of goodness can be taken from the past. And actually the thrust is just the opposite, getting rid of the past. Let it conform to the model of the now fixation, an already made, constructed and limiting model of knowing. And of course, the ego comes in hand here. The ego demands you to go even more into the now, to cut out of reality and let the ego construct that paradise you are waiting for in the now, to bless you, so to speak, to give you all that satisfaction, all that knowledge, all that information for your doings that you've been wanting. It is the now that is going to give that to you, not the past. And when you don't get that knowledge in the now, you seek even harder to get rid of the past. In your idea of the technological knowledge, the only thing stopping progress is the past, and you start yourself a cultural revolution like Mao Zedong did in China by burning old scriptures. He burned millions of them. He broke temples. He killed people with knowledge. And this is the very act of metaphysics of presence. He wanted to gain full presence. He himself had this lack of satisfactions, and so did his cadres, and that made them not shying away from any torture, any murder. I think it was 50 million people murdered in the Cultural Revolution, because it is a fanaticism. And the more you go into the nowness, the more you lose your reality, and you lose your body, so you cannot sense anymore the horrible things you do, how they affect you, how they make you spiral down to a lower level of complexity, of a lower level of chaotic system. And this was actually encouraged by the philosophers. The gang of the three, Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, sort of show the way for their disciples to get rid of knowledge even more, to seek knowing in a now or a world of ideas. And this is stuck even today. The establishment was already made by the gang of the three, was established in experience itself, and it's only there it can be healed. It cannot be healed within the concepts only. You need to get to the flesh of reality and see what sort of processes are already at hand, already doing their things. And you start to feel disembodied in this process. You become less and less real. And in this process, of course, memories become less and less real, and you start learning that the only good way of projection is by then just chancing, just making something up in the now, comparing the technologically made pieces of not knowing together, and you let the automatic process of non-awareness. Ego is a non-aware part of yourself. So you could say the ego is the non-awareness of space and time and knowledge. And on the other pole, you have now existence and the fear of a peyron. So, lack of any other name, I call it fear of a peyron. This is the equivalent of shying away from knowledge, making your system fear knowledge and trying to avoid it at every price. It's so obvious the similarities to an autoimmune disease, where the body itself attacks itself. It's not so much about external attacks here. It's we who do the attack to our own system. Try to chlorinate the whole system of all knowing things, all differences, all depth, and by doing that we think that this selfless ego, this ego that doesn't have any awareness, somewhere in some of the other worlds of Hugh Everett or Max Tegmark, where it could survive and be only this polarity somewhere. You're more than happy to have an existence world that no one ever have seen, no one have ever experienced. And this is fantastically enough, and this makes me really happy. Here I understand why we have the mathematics we have, because the more consistent, more functional mathematics, the one that is projecting, the constructive mathematics always starts with things that exist, that belong to the past. That's why it's called constructivism. It starts with things that are established, seen, and made, whereas the Platonic mathematics starts in the now, and it says that all those things have always been. So you see, this is a way of denying your own memory by saying that all things have already always existed outside yourself. And by that we take away the past, and we also take away the future. In the past we take away our self, our awareness, but in the future we take away our planning, our intelligence, our direction. And we're losing in both ends at the same time, and thereby narrowing the now to become more and more shallow, more one-dimensional. And for the future, it is doing itself in the end. It's a process that interlocks cause and effect, and it goes by itself. And this whole process, metaphysics of presence, is taking away awareness. Socrates and Plato and Aristotle wanted to do is to make themselves less aware, and making the whole world more automatic, more same, taking away radical difference that could lead to you actually experience something. And this was already established when they were into it. They were born into it. And this is, of course, the cutting off of the body. This is why you start academia, you will be more and more cut off from your body. You will no longer in the end feel your own body, and you will not be able to make comparisons between when you're unhappy, like here, like a child cannot tell what makes it happy, cannot tell what makes it sad. Everything just happens to it. And as adults we should learn that, but actually we go more in the other direction. We become more childlike in the bad sense of just reacting to the stimuli around us in an unconscious, predetermined way, where we in every instance say to ourselves, I am not conscious, I don't have a past, I don't have a knowledge. Knowledge is the past. The past is a knowledge, and that cannot inform our future actions. And in this spiraling down, we become less and less aware, and the lessening of awareness makes us understand even less and less and less. And we're spiraling down, cutting off more and more. It is like the system tells you, cut off this too, cut off this too, burn everything. And we become like the mad Roman emperors. When they don't achieve their goals, they try to attack people. Or, well, maybe even better example, the French Revolution. When liberty, fraternity, and equality was not achieved, they start murdering people. First, you start attacking yourself, reading knowledge, burning the churches, burning all knowledge, forcefully getting rid of it as much as you can. And then, in this process, you also attack yourself, attack your own memory, attack your ability to understand the future, because it's only the past that can inform your future, your futuring as an active ingredient. Without the past, there will be no informed decisions. Your decisions will be mechanical, there will be no planning, and just as Ben Ariely shows, 85 to 90% of the decisions in modern world are happenstance, completely random, because all these divisions I'm talking about now, they were constructed from a random start. The trauma is completely random. It was not a philosophy from the start. The philosophers were already in the ontic mode. They didn't have a choice, because choicelessness is what unawareness is. That's the very essence, if you like, of being unaware. Everything is happenstance. It's like throwing a dice into a roulette board. So it's like you triple the randomness, and you make randomness your reality and God, and you try to obliterate the subjective. And this is also, of course, the modern tendency to make physics the most important thing for human beings, space, time and knowledge. Make physics something we don't even can access, because it's so far away from us, and thereby we make it obscure, not transparent, and we cannot enter it anymore. And I think this is a good point to end here. I wish you a very happy afternoon. See you very soon. Bye bye for now.